Good evening and welcome to this webinar on how to ace GMAT reading comprehension. In this webinar, Payal Tanan, who's the other co-founder of e-GMAT, talks about key reading strategies which, if you apply, can help improve comprehension. And once you improve comprehension, acing reading comprehension becomes a piece of cake. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and based on where you are, which time zone you are in, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Rajat Sudana. I'm one of the co-founders of e-GMAT, and I'm going to be your co-host today. Supporting me in this webinar, we have Komal Shah, who is a former Be the GMAT moderator and a GMAT strategy expert at e-GMAT, and she's also going to be a co-host today. And then Payal Tanan, who's the other co-founder of e-GMAT, is going to be a main host today. As I mentioned earlier, in this webinar, Payal would demonstrate how, when you apply key reading strategies, you can master GMAT reading comprehension. She'll also demonstrate how you can answer the easiest to the most challenging questions. But to make sure that you have that foundation in GMAT reading comprehension, we did send a couple of video lessons your way. The video lessons were in main point 1 and 2. Some of our actually more popular video lessons. If you've not gone through these video lessons, do go through them post this webinar. They will help improve your overall RC ability. We also have a couple of upcoming free webinars. We have a free webinar on how to pre-think in critical reasonings. If critical reasoning is something that bothers you, when you see arguments, you have no idea how to figure out strengtheners, weakeners, assumptions, evaluate, or logically complete type of questions, then this webinar will help you comprehend arguments much more comprehensively, and consequently will help you answer every argument-based question and with much higher ability. So that webinar is a week from now. That's next Saturday. Next Sunday, we have a webinar on GMAT algebra. In this, Payal would talk about how can you score 90th percentile in algebra, and we'll focus specifically on inequalities and absolute value. So again, both these webinars are very application focused webinars. All you need to know are a few key concepts, and when you register for these webinars, we do send those few key concepts your way. So if you're looking to improve in these areas, definitely A, register for the webinars, and B, invest some time going through those key concepts. With this is a free webinar, and to make sure that we do justice to this group as a whole, we ask a couple of leading questions. One of them is, when do you plan to take the test? And based on the data that I have over here, what I can really see is the biggest group over here is those who have their test in about a couple of weeks to 30 days. We also have a similarly sized group that has between a month to 45 days before their exam. And let's get some more data points. One other data point is, what is your target GMAT score? Let's see what scores is this group aiming for. All right, I have about 70 odd responses based on the data that I see over here. It's 730 to 750, definitely the most popular group. 710, 720, also really popular. And then 760 plus is about 20% of you, or as the numbers are changing, about 15% of you. And then about 9% of you are in that 600 to 700 bracket. That's wonderful. Thank you very much for these inputs, guys. With that, let me go right into the webinar pane. As we go there, the screen will have changed for you, or it will be in the process of changing for you. So if you are in parts of Asia, it probably will take another 15 to 20 seconds for the screen to change for you. If you are in the US, like I am, or in Europe, the screen should have changed for you already. I'm going to put in a yes/no poll. If you see GMAT reading comprehension, and if you see my photograph at the bottom right-hand corner, then select yes. Also, below the presentation pod, you're going to see a question and answer pod. If you have a question, I saw a few of you were raising hands a minute or so back. You can post a question over there, and Komal or I can take that question. All right, it seems pretty much the system settled for pretty much everyone. If there's still a couple of folks who cannot see the presentation, just join again using the same link that was sent to you. Usually when you join again, the problem would sort out by itself. This session from this point on would be about 2 hours long. So there are essentially 3 parts of this webinar. In the first part, I'm going to spend about 15 minutes and I'm going to give you an introduction to e-GMAT. In the second part, Payal would take over and would focus on those key reading strategies. It's going to be about 105 minutes. In the third part, if you still have questions that have not been responded to, if you want to know, hey, how can you as a person starting from a certain XYZ score can get to a 730, 740 or a 760, you need that personalized study plan, you need to figure out which schools to apply to, then reserve those questions for this third part of the webinar. We'd love to answer those questions as long as we get the relevant inputs and as long as they are over here. By the way, if you want to just write to us and get answers to those questions, you can do that as well. So I asked this question, what's your target GMAT score? And upwards of 50% of you aiming for a score of 720 or higher. And while that may be the case, statistically, only 6% of the people get to that score. And this is despite the fact that, median scores at top B schools have been going up for the last 6 years. And even this year, at many schools, they continue to go up. So while that happens, what is it that people who actually get to the score of 720 or higher do? A good chunk of them. So people who get to these scores, a good percentage of them use e-GMAT. And why do we say that? When you look at 2 metrics, one is the number of verified reviews over the last 6 years. The second is the number of success stories over the last 12 months. What you're going to find is that e-GMAT accounts for more verified reviews than do any of the other major prep companies. Similarly, more students mention e-GMAT while writing their success stories than do mention any of the other major prep companies. What makes our students more successful, or what makes our courses more effective? If there's one thing that separates us from everyone else, it is our approach to GMAT preparation. And just to understand how our approach is different, let's understand that the learning architectures that exist today, because fundamentally the approach is based on a learning architecture. So when you think about the learning architectures that are prevalent today worldwide, regardless of whether you're talking about the context of GMAT or in general learning, you're going to find 2 different learning architectures. One is what we call as the classical book-based learning architecture, and the second is a private tutor-based learning architecture. When you map most of the other audiovisual courses that exist today in the GMAT space, you'd find that even though they have videos, even though they have quizzing, the core learning architecture that they provide is a book-based architecture. When you map e-GMAT's courses to one of these 2 architectures, you're going to find that they're aligned a lot more closely with a private tutor-based architecture. So just to understand why is one architecture better than other and helping you get to that score of 720 or higher, let's see how do you get to that score of 720 or higher. So I have about 160 students in this webinar right now. And then if you want to get to that 720 or higher score, for each one of you, you have a different starting point. You have different strengths and weaknesses. Usually when we characterize a student, especially those of you who worked with us to create your personalized study plans, you'd know that we take in about 8 to 10 data points into account when creating your study plan. So you do that, you create a path to that 720 or higher score. Based on the strengths and weaknesses that have been computed, you then learn the concepts that you're required to learn. Just knowing concepts isn't enough. You also have to learn how to apply those concepts, and then you've got to get so good at applying those concepts that you attain a level of mastery that puts you in the top 6 percentile of students, frankly. And how do you get so good at applying those concepts? Only when you get constant feedback on where you're lacking. So let's see how a book-based approach solves this problem. A book-based approach is all about autonomy. So when you start learning using a book, you get a bunch of study plans, probably 2, 3, or 4. There's no means to personalize that study plan. You've got to choose the one that you think would fit the bill for you. Then you start learning concepts, and books are a great way to learn concepts. The only problem is when 1,000 people go through a chapter in a book, they learn to 1,000 different degrees. Now, books, because of their very static nature, have no means to provide feedback to these students to really say, hey, you've learned enough to move on from concept A to concept B, or you do need to revise these certain portions. So that burden of validation, as this point really says, is completely with the student. One area where books seriously lack is teaching you how to apply those concepts. When you study a chapter using a book, you probably have 3 or 4 examples. Even in those examples, a book is not designed to really tell you, hey, this is what you do in step 1, this is what you do in step 2, this is what you do in step 3 while answering a question. And so people who learn from books, they actually figure out where can they get hundreds and hundreds of questions to solve. And even then, those who master the application portion are only the best and the brightest. And when it comes to that evaluation of master, which is, hey, am I in the top 6 percentile of students or not? People who study using books take 10 plus mock tests. And yes, taking a mock test is great to a certain degree, but analyzing a mock test becomes a problem, especially when you want to figure out, hey, am I doing poorly in verbal because I lack in parallelism and sentence correction, or I lack in inference questions in RC. So that onus of evaluation in the context of a mock A is completely on student, and B becomes really, really challenging. A private tutoring architecture works very differently. When you work with a good private tutor, the first thing that a good private tutor would do is create a personalized study plan based on a personalized evaluation that takes your strengths and weaknesses into account, and then would create a study plan which would include, hey, this is the amount of time you're going to spend on this aspect. This is the aspect that you know really, really well. You don't need to bother about it, and so on and so forth. Then a private tutor would teach you concepts and give you feedback as you're learning those concepts. Again, the intent really is, if you want to be in the top 6 percentile, you've got to learn concepts well enough such that it puts you in the top 6 percentile. Just merely knowing those concepts isn't enough. As you practice questions, the private tutor will tell you what do you need to do in step 1, what do you need to do in step 2, what is it that you need to do in step 3. As Pyle takes over in the second part of this webinar, which is in about 7 minutes or so, you're going to really see Pyle do that to each and every question that she solves. And while you're solving questions, the private tutor would constantly evaluate you and would tell you, when can you go from one part to the other? When can you move over from parallelism to comparison? Or when can you go on from sentence correction to critical reasoning or reading comprehension or number properties? So what's the key difference between two approaches? While you learn the same content, the extent of perfection that a private tutor-based approach enables because of the personalized feedback is a lot more. And when you're taking an exam where you want to get to that 730, 740, 760 score, which is where what you're essentially saying is, I want to be among the top 3, top 4, or top 1 percentile of students, you can really see why a private tutor-based approach would work a lot better. Now, if all you wanted was a 70th percentile score, like a 630 or a 640, yes, a book-based approach would do just as well. So let's see, why do we say that most of the other courses are built on this book-based architecture, whereas e-GMAT's built around this private tutor-based architecture? So we're going to start with an example of a student who wants to go from a score of 600 to a score of 720, which is a 120 point improvement. I think it's probably the average improvement that this group as a whole seeks to attain. So the first thing that a private tutor does is to create a personalized study plan. How do you go about creating a personalized study plan? One is define your starting strengths and weaknesses. The next is define your target milestones, which is, hey, what ability levels are you going to improve to in various aspects of the GMAT to get to that 720 score? And then personalize the course, which is focus on areas which will give you the most bang of for your time, and then spend the appropriate amount of time, and don't study areas where you already know stuff. So how do you quantify your starting abilities? e-GMAT offers the world's only mock test that gives you 5 ability scores. 1 in SC, 1 in CR, 1 in RC, 1 in arithmetic, and 1 in algebra. This is essentially the same report that you get with an ESR when you take the actual GMAT. So when you do that, you get your starting abilities. And then if you Google Sigma X Mock, you're going to get to this URL, and then each one of you can get your starting abilities overall. Now, once you have your starting abilities, you have to set your target milestones. How do you go about doing that? We've created an AI-driven utility that empowers each and every one of you to create your personalized study plan. So you put in your starting abilities there, and it will tell you what your target abilities are. Here's a workflow within GMAT Planner. It'll take in your current quant and verbal scores. You can get these scores from Sigma X Mock. It'll then tell you, if you want to get to that 720, what should be the quant and verbal score that you need to target. Now, while doing that, it goes through about 10 permutations to decide which is the score that will be the easiest for you to achieve. Then it will also tell you how can you get to a Q50 and how can you get to a V38. There's personalization done at this point as well by looking at your starting abilities. And when it does that, your overall GMAT preparation looks something like this, where you are going from a Q44 and a V28, and with the starting abilities in arithmetic and algebra as 59 and 39, to a Q50 with the target abilities as mentioned over here. And similarly, just let me do that on the verbal side as well. So when this happens, think about how you're thinking about in sentence correction over here. You know that you have a starting ability of 50th percentile. You know you need to get to a target ability of 89th percentile. Clearly, when you think about it, the kind of effort, the amount of time you're going to spend in sentence correction is a lot more than the amount of time that you're going to spend on reading comprehension. Why? Because in reading comprehension, you don't need to hit that 90th percentile. Now, if it were just the opposite, if the system suggested, hey, you should ace reading comprehension, you would just do just the opposite. Then it tells you how much effort, based on the data that we have of upwards of 40,000 students, would you need to get there. And this is time in weeks over here, and this takes into account the amount of hours that you can spend every day on a weekday as well as on a weekend. Again, you can see your starting abilities, you can see your target milestones, you can see the amount of effort for every subsection. And this is just the starting point of personalization. So when this happens, your GMAT preparation is now divided into 5 neatly defined sub-preparations. If you hit these milestones, you can be very certain you can hit that 720 score. Why? Because that 720 score is composed of these milestones. And the reason why I built, and then it actually even gives you a day-by-day plan. You can really see the number of hours you need to study. You can see the sequence in which you're studying over here. And you can also see the personalization done based on the number of hours that you can put in on a weekday and on a weekend. So why did we spend upwards of 1,000 hours building this? So that each one of you can create your personalized study plan in 7 minutes or less. That's all that it takes. That's just about study planning, and you can see the amount of rigor that's gone in over here. Let's talk about the next steps, which is learning concepts. This is another example of another study plan that can get you to a score of 720, another permutation and combination that the planner goes through that you don't see. So that is just this aspect over here, which is study planning. Let's see how can you get to, how does it personalize your course when it comes to learning concepts. To do that, I'm going to show our subject verb module. This is one of the 18 modules in our sentence correction course. What you see over here is the feedback mechanism that's built within our video lessons as well as our quizzing platform. So you learn the concepts over here. So everything that you see over here with the video icon is a concept file. Each concept, whenever you learn, has an embedded evaluation in there. Based on the evaluation, you get feedback within the file, which is personalized to you. Many of these files change based on how you're doing over here. So there's learning that's personalized, there's feedback that's personalized overall. Now, And this is just very similar to what a private tutor would do while teaching you concepts. He or she would personalize that learning to you. Now compare this to another very popular course by Magoosh. Again, the subject verb part over here. What you rarely see is a couple of video lessons in subject verb. Then you get to auxiliary verbs. Another piece that you rarely see is you see this time over here. This is not the time that you spent on the video. This is the length of the video. The time that we capture is the time that you spent on the video. Why? Because that's valuable data that we can use to give you personalized feedback later on. That's just about learning concepts. Let's talk about learning application. Remember, when you're solving questions, a private tutor would tell you what you need to do in step 1, what you need to do in step 2, step 3, and so on and so forth. The e-GMAT platform is designed to do just that. After you learn a bunch of concepts, we teach you how to apply those concepts. Then you go through a specific quiz in which we evaluate your ability to apply those concepts. And again, this feedback's personalized to you. And then we send you a bunch of specific official questions on which you can apply those concepts. So when you learn and apply those concepts right at the same time, you get feedback as to whether you've learned well enough or not to move on, not just from SC to CR, but also from subject verbs to verbs or subject verbs to pronoun and so on and so forth. And this is how every module in e-GMAT is architected. And that's just the learning part of it. There's a very harmonious marriage of content with our backend technology. Again, when you compare it to most of the other courses out there, what you're going to really see is the concept of application doesn't exist. There's no application file here. And essentially, you do see one practice file, which is common not just to subject verb, but also to auxiliary verbs and pronouns. And again, even when you see those files, you don't see a score over here. Again, the intent is not to give you feedback, but just to provide practice. The last piece is evaluation of mastery. Remember, a private tutor, as you're solving questions, evaluates you constantly and gives you feedback. And why is this important? The reason why it's important is because when you're studying sentence correction or reading comprehension, you're studying this to achieve a 90th percentile. And you can't achieve the 90th percentile if you just study. To evaluate your extent of mastery, we built a tool called Rhenium in which you can take a sentence correction ability quiz. And as you take this ability quiz, it will tell you your ability score, which is what you see over here, but it will also tell you the areas that you need to focus on. Clearly, this guy needs to focus his or her energy on comparisons. So you can really see, how and why we say that most of the other courses are built around this book-based architecture, whereas e-GMAT's built around this private tutoring-based approach. Who's created this content? 4 out of GMAT Club's top 5 rated instructors have created this content. Instructors who've been reviewed a lot more frequently on GMAT Club. So while only 6% of the people get to those scores of 720 or higher, you can really see why a very good percentage of them use e-GMAT. With that, I've come to the end of my introduction. If you want to stay updated with all things e-GMAT, if you want to stay updated with many things that go on in the B-School world, you can connect with me on my LinkedIn profile. We post about 6 articles every week, and then we actually write about 8 articles every week on our blog, which we share. We also share a number of student success stories, and you can, if you want to connect with students who are studying at top business schools or top admission officers, this would also help you do that. With that, we are
All right, thank you, Rajat, for that wonderful introduction. And hello, good morning, and good evening to everyone. My name is Payal Tanton, and I will be your host for this reading comprehension part of the webinar. Let's just please make sure that everyone can hear me clearly. It appears so. All right. Thank you very much. So, reading comprehension. I would like to begin with first understanding what is your current approach towards reading comprehension and what do you feel about reading comprehension today? So tell me one thing, when you think about reading comprehension, do you feel excited about it? Yes or no? No. Okay. Why is that? Why is that the case? And I'm going to share a poll with you here. Why do you not feel excited about reading comprehension? What pulls you down? Okay. All answers look the same. Topics are not familiar, don't understand, too long, too convoluted. I think I understand, but I don't get good scores. Not able to understand long passages. Okay. So what it appears is that it's really the very nature of reading comprehension. That is, that reading comprehension consists of those long passages. There's a huge chunk of text that you need to read in order to answer the questions, read and understand in order to answer the questions. And that very nature of reading comprehension is what puts you down. Now, if reading comprehension passages were easy enough, were straightforward, then definitely reading comprehension will not bog you down. But that is not the nature of RC passages on the GMAT. These passages are long. They're very well connected, but they are pretty dense. I absolutely agree with you. All right. Okay, so now that I have understood why you don't like RC, let's put some more concrete reasons around it. So tell me which one of these, and again, this is really a follow-up question to what I asked you earlier, and I'm going to get you the poll here. Tell me which of these reasons do you associate with the most? You may associate with more than one reasons, but which is the reason that you associate with the most? So it appears that the reading speed is slow is the issue, along with answer choices are very close. Okay. All right. Sounds good. So let me ask you this. Based on what you just told me, that reading speed is slow, and you feel that there is just a whole lot of information that you need to read through in order to even start answering RC passages, tell me, what is the difference between an active reader and a passive reader? Concentration level, okay. Active reads regularly. No, that's not the answer. Active may also read regularly, but that's not the actual answer. Active reader tries to understand the big picture. Okay. I haven't gotten any very specific answer here. Okay. So the main difference between an active reader and a passive reader is that an active reader actually gets engaged in the passage. An active reader makes sure that he gets everything from the passage, and he's immersed in the passage and he understands the passage really well. He reads with the intent to understand. Whereas a passive reader, even if the passive reader doesn't want to do that, but what he or she ends up doing is that he or she ends up reading the passage just at a very surface level and doesn't get deep into the passage. And that's the reason why the level of comprehension that an active reader has is really high as compared to the level of comprehension of a passive reader. Okay, and that is why a passive reader does not do well in RC, whereas an active reader does really well in RC. And that is something what I'm going to concentrate on in this session. How is it that you can turn into an active reader? Okay, it's a choice, but it is a very conscious choice, because along with that choice comes a bunch of other things that you absolutely need to do, and that is what we're going to talk about in this session, because that is one thing that will help you ace reading comprehension. The first thing that I'm going to teach you is how is it that you can get the maximum from the passage. Okay, I'm going to introduce certain reading strategies to you. I'm going to demonstrate those reading strategies through 2 small passages. Okay, once we do that, then I'm going to teach you how is it that we can utilize the information that you've understood from the passage in order to answer the questions that are given to you. Okay, for that we're going to demonstrate a main point question and an inference question. Okay, So we're going to be doing two small passages, one with main point question, the other one with inference question. And again, the goal here is that given the passage, how do you read it? Okay. What are some of the reading strategies that you apply today? Okay, mini mind map. What else? Read and summarize it. Read and make brief notes. Read and summarize. Take short notes. Visualization and taking notes. Skimming through the passage. Okay. Read the start. Underline, circles, highlights. Write questions in the margin. Keeping a log of information. Well, you can't do that in the. You can do that while you're preparing. Absolutely. Okay. Take interest in the passage. Okay. All right, good. Some of these are actual strategies. Some of these are outputs of the strategy that you need to apply. Output of your reading, like when you read and summarize every paragraph. How do you do that? How do you read, right? But some of these are actionable. For example, read slow and get involved. That one is good. Taking notes. That one is a good one because that's an actionable thing. Transitional word, notice opinions in the passage. That's also a good one. Okay, good. These some good strategies, some outputs of strategies which are absolutely worthy. So we are going to pick it from here, and now we are going to talk about what are the various strategies that we recommend, that we prescribe in order for you to do well on RC. Okay. Now the first and the foremost thing is your attitude towards RC. Your journey to acing GMAT RC starts with having that right attitude towards reading comprehension. Okay, there's so many of you, almost all of you, who are scared of RC, who consider RC as their nemesis, who consider that okay, RC is a gone case. If it's a hit or miss. If I get it, I get it. If I don't get it, I don't get it. So I won't rely upon that, right? You need to change that attitude. You need to feel that okay, RC is within your reach. How many of you are planning to score, or how many of you aim to score above 740? So if that's your target score, then definitely you cannot ignore RC. You have to do well in RC, right? Now, the attitude that I'm talking about is that you need to feel in control of reading comprehension. You need to feel that I can do RC. It's not outside my reach. Okay, that is the kind of attitude that you need to get, that RC is within my reach. Okay, now how do you do that? The first thing is that you get immersed in the passage. This is a very, very important thing, and there is not. I can give you a certain couple of scenarios to think about in order for you to get immersed in RC, but really this is an attitude change that you need to make in your attitude towards RC. Okay, what do I mean by getting immersed in the passage? When you read a passage, I don't want you to feel, oh my goodness, another RC passage. Let's say you are a science student and you're not interested in humanities passage at all, and you get a humanities passage, let's say women emancipation passage, and if the first reaction that you have for looking at that passage is, oh my goodness, another humanities passage, I can't deal with that. That's the attitude which is not going to help you. Okay, the attitude that's going to help you is the moment you see the RC passage, you see that as an opportunity to learn something from the passage, to read a very interesting piece of text that has very well connected ideas, to interact with the author. That is the kind of immersion that is required. That's the kind of excitement that you should have whenever you see an RC passage, regardless of the topic of the passage. The certain things that go on in my mind that I tell myself is, the author has written such a beautiful piece of text. It's only fair if I give the author the due importance to the amount of time that he has spent in writing the text. So I'm going to spend my time to understand what he is trying to communicate to me, because after all, author has an intent to communicate to me, right? He has a purpose behind writing that passage. So I'm going to give my due diligence. I'm going to do my due diligence in order to understand why the author has written the passage, what the author is telling me, how is he telling me. Okay, those are the things that you have to remind yourself whenever you see an RC passage, with the ultimate goal that you want to understand everything that the author has said, with the ultimate goal to understand why the author has written the passage, with the ultimate goal to understand how the author has constructed this passage. Does this make sense? Okay, how many of you do that today? Okay, about half of the class does it, half doesn't. Okay, so from this point on, let's make sure that all of us do this, because this is the easiest thing to do. And frankly, yes, I do see a comment. Easier said, I feel. You know, it's more of a mindset change, right? For example, if there's something that you don't quite enjoy doing, it's not the if you just prime your mind to tell you, no, I do enjoy. It's really a state of mind. If you start to enjoy RC, you will see that all the strategies that I talk about beyond this point, those strategies will start to come more easy to you. Okay, and that's you're just priming your mind. Okay, now let's come to the reading strategies themselves. There are three key reading strategies that we need to apply. The first one is understand the sentence structure. And this is a very, very important one, because here because an RC passage consists of multiple long sentences. Okay, and these sentences contain multiple ideas. Each sentence contains multiple ideas. Okay, so it's your job to make sure that you break down the sentence into smaller parts in order to understand everything that the author is trying to communicate. Okay, so understanding the sentence structure is a very, very important skill. Now, how many of you read the sentence today by breaking it down into smaller parts? Okay, again, half of the class does it, the other half doesn't do it. Now, how many of you are familiar with the strategic pausing technique? Okay, 1/3 of the class. All right. Basically, when you read a sentence, you need to pause at appropriate points in order to understand that particular portion before you get more information from the sentence, right? And where do you pause are called as pause points. And these pause points have been taught in our Master Comprehension course. Master Comprehension course is the is the course that lays the foundation of all GMAT verbal. Okay, so in that course we teach you where do you pause, why do you pause, what is the reasoning behind all these pause points, right? So as you start to do that, as you learn where to pause, whenever you read a sentence, you now pause at those points, and as you're pausing, you're reading the meaning, you're understanding the meaning of that sentence, and then you're assimilating that meaning as you're going forward. And this technique is very helpful in sentence correction, it's very helpful in reading comprehension, as well as in critical reasoning. Okay, so that's the understand sentence structure bit, and I am going to demonstrate this strategy to you on the two passages that we discuss in this session. The second one is predict the thoughts through keywords. Now, what do I mean by that? Predicting the thoughts through keywords means that whenever you see any transition words, let's say however, moreover, furthermore, like, right, those words, you should always pause before you read what follows. Okay, you should pause and you should understand, given what the author has said till now, and given this transition word, what do you think the author is going to talk about next? That is the kind of processing that should happen in your mind even before you read what comes after that transition word or what comes after that keyword. For example, let's say if in the passage the author has presented positive aspects about a certain thing, right? Now, when you and then the author says, having said that. Now, having said that, comma, blah blah blah, you haven't read what blah 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 is. Now, what do you think that would be, given what you've read so far, that the author has presented positive aspects about a certain thing, and then he's saying, having said that. What do you think the author is going to say next? He's going to give some negatives. Yes, he's going to give a contrast. He will not continue to say the same thing, that's for sure, because he said, having said that, maybe that, okay, there's something else coming. It's not going to be the same thing, that's for sure. Okay? All right. And that is the kind of prediction that you need to do. Now you may wonder, why should I predict? The author has, I already have the entire piece of text, and why should I predict? Why can't I just read? The reason for, and that's a very valid question. The reason for that is that if you pause and if you predict, you are again preparing your mind to absorb the information that comes next. Right? And whenever you prepare your mind to absorb that kind of information, the absorption happens a lot better. Preparing your mind or priming your mind, right? That's what you're doing by that act of pausing and predicting. So that whatever you see next really sticks in your mind. Really, it becomes more like a revision then, right? So think about it that as if you've read that part twice, right? So that is what happens if you predict the thoughts through keywords, if you pause and if you predict, okay? Now the last one is a very interesting one wherein we are talking about summarizing and predicting what's next. And I would not give prediction that much of an importance here, but summarizing whatever you've read so far is very, very important. And this can be done either after, let's say, a complete sentence, if the sentence is really too long, or after multiple sentences, or after each paragraph. The choice is yours. Now, how do you make that choice? Whenever you start to feel that overload of information, right, you should pause at that point and you should summarize everything that you've read in your own words. And that's very important. Whenever you write something in your own words, that information really sticks in your mind. It really gets cemented in your mind. And that is the whole goal. Right? So very, very important to summarize and to take down notes in your own words. That's very important. Okay. So if you think about it, the reading strategies, they are at various levels. At the most basic level, that is at the sentence level, then within a paragraph when you are looking at transition words, and then the last reading strategy is within the paragraph as well as among the paragraphs. Okay. So now we're going to apply these reading strategies slowly on a small RC passage. But before I go there, I do want to talk about one more tactical strategy, and that is really if you see a long technical term or if you see an unfamiliar technical term, just shorten it up. Don't let it act as a speed bump as you're going through the content. Okay, just shorten it up and move forward. And that's what we call as abbreviating the terms. Okay. All right, so now let's apply these reading strategies slowly to a passage. Are you all ready for that? Okay. Now, before I show you the passage, I want to ask you which one of these three strategies surprised you the most, or which one of these three strategies were like, really? You do that on RC? None. Okay. The second one, which was predicting through the keywords and then the pause points, okay, which was the first one. Okay, all right, sounds good. But I'll ask you one more question. But do these strategies seem logical? Yes or no? Okay. Now, one more thing that I will tell you up front, because I want you to give your best to the passage that we have in this session. How many of you have that fear in your mind that, oh God, how is this going to work in the timed environment of the test? Okay, almost everyone. Keep that fear on the side right now. I promise I will address this fear, And frankly, I wouldn't be here sitting in front of you explaining these strategies to you if these strategies didn't work in the GMAT context, right? Why would I teach you strategies that don't work? So believe me, these strategies work. You just have to, this is a new skill that you're building. You just have to give it some time for these strategies to become second nature to you. Okay. As you learn the strategies, as you're learning the strategies, it will take time for you to read the passage. That goes without saying. In the beginning, it is going to take time. But as you master these strategies, as these strategies become second nature to you, you will be able to read an RC passage rather quickly. You will be able to answer questions based on RC passage rather quickly. I'll put it that way. Okay, so for now, give it your best. Don't worry about timing. I'm not going to worry about timing. Timing is a consequence that's going to happen. That's going to come automatically. Okay, but right now, give it your best. All right. Another thing, as I said, I will not time you. So when you're done reading the passage, click on yes. But before that, can you just click on no over here so that I know how many people are actively engaged with the passage. And as you are reading the passage, after you're done reading the passage, I want you to put in your summarized notes here. Not while you're reading, but after you're done reading the passage. Okay? While you're reading the passage, feel free to take notes in your scratch pad. Okay? All right, here you go. All right, I'm going to show you the question now. Here's the question, and I'm going to get you the poll as well. Last few seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, I'll take away these over here and this one too. So what strategies were you able to apply? Pauses, okay, so the first one, good. Summarizing, slow reading, pause at correct points. Okay, good. Did the strategies help? Did you feel that you had a solid handle on the passage? Abbreviate the terms, okay. Not too much, yes, okay. Some yeses, some nos. How many of you felt that how many of you felt connected with the passage? Let me ask that first. Okay, not that many. So you didn't apply the attitude. You weren't immersed in the passage. You didn't change your attitude towards this passage. Okay. All right, let's go through this. I have looked at your notes and let me explain the passage to you in my own way, and then we'll look at your notes as well and see how much of information from the passage, what all information from the passage were you able to extract. Okay, so let's do that. Bordering on the extreme, one definition of ethnocentrism. Now, bordering on the extreme, what does this part describe? It's a modifier. What does it describe? Ethnocentrism or definition? Okay. Now, how many of you feel, if you feel that bordering on the extreme modifies ethnocentrism, click on yes. Okay. Yes, bordering on the extreme does not describe ethnocentrism. It describes one definition of ethnocentrism. Okay. There are a couple of you who are saying that my voice is not fine. How many of you can hear me clearly? Okay, how about now? That is weird. Okay. All right, now is it good? Okay, it was clear earlier. Okay, I don't know why this happens. For some people it remains clear, but then for quite a few of you okay. Let's get a poll here. How many of you can hear me clearly? Okay. All right. So about 25. I mean, usually if the problem is only for a couple of people, then it's really connection at their end. But right now it's for quite a few people. All right. Let me disconnect and connect. Okay. How about now? Is it good now? Okay. Give me just a second, people. So. Okay, I am actually quiet right now. Okay, give me just a minute here. Okay, let me just check. Okay, people who are not able to hear me, what are the issues that you're facing? Obviously, if you okay, so is the voice okay now or no? Your voice keeps breaking up. Voice is breaking. Okay, static.
Okay, let me just log on from my computer.
Okay. Okay, we're just going to try out another system and see if that system is working okay, and then I'm going to move over there. So let's just please bear with me for a couple of more minutes. Okay. I think people should refresh the website. Okay, we can try that out as well. Usually that works. Again, when a lot of people start to have problems, then I feel that the issue is at my end, and that's why I'm trying to fix that issue. If it's only for a couple of people, then yes, just refresh, works fine. Okay, so let's just wait for Rajat to join from his computer.
All right, guys. Pyle, can you mute yourself, please? All right, guys. Here, I'm trying another system. Is the audio any better from this system? Let's just get another response. Let me actually clear the poll, the short answer poll, so that, so yeah, is this better? All right, it's good. So if you're still breaking, then it's an internet connection issue at your end overall. So I think if it's still breaking, I would just recommend just log off, join again. But yeah. So I think the issue is more at your end. If you're using a mobile internet connection, usually the connection quality varies with time, and you log off and log in, log back in. You reset that connection, the quality improves more often than not. So do that. Pyle, I think you're good from your system itself.
Okay, perfect. And thank you for your patience, and thanks everyone who's been giving recommendations. All right, all right, we are back. Apologize for that little segue there. Okay, so let's come back to this. Bordering on the extreme, one definition of ethnocentrism. Bordering on the extreme describes one definition of ethnocentrism, not ethnocentrism by itself. Now, what does bordering on the extreme actually mean? What does bordering on the extreme mean? It's on the edge, yes. Okay, so bordering on the extreme means it is an extreme definition, right? Which means it's an exaggerated definition. That's what it means. That it's an exaggerated definition. It's not a generally accepted definition. It's an exaggerated definition, right? Now, according to this exaggerated definition, so if you look at this, where did I pause? I first paused at this point over here, bordering on the extreme. Then I paused at one definition of ethnocentrism, and I tried to understand what does bordering on the extreme describe, and I understood it describes one definition. And then I understood myself that, okay, bordering on the extreme means that this definition, this one definition of ethnocentrism is exaggerated. It's not a generally accepted definition, right? So in my notes, what do I have? Exaggerated definition of EC. That's what I have written down in my notes. How many of you wrote that in your notes? Exaggerated or extreme definition of EC. Okay, so that is something which you should have written down in your notes. Okay, so write that down in your notes right now. Right, then I read further. This definition considers it a schematic in-group out-group differentiation, and I pause here. Why? Because I see in which after this, which means I'm going to see more descriptive information. So let me pause at this point. So this definition considers it. Now what does it refer to? It refers to EC. Considers EC a schematic in-group out-group differentiation. Now, do I know the meaning of schematic? No. Do I need to worry about it? No. because all I can say is, okay, EC, this definition considers EC some kind of in-group, out-group differentiation. Now, what do I mean by in-group, out-group differentiation? Really, some kind of differentiation. That's all. Right? Some kind of differentiation between people inside the group and people outside the group. Right? So this part is fairly straightforward. So what have I learned about the definition till now? That according to this extreme definition, this definition considers EC some kind of differentiation, right? Now I read what comes next, right? In which, now what is this part going to explain to me? Even before I read the next part, I should know what is the role played by this part. It's going to explain the differentiation, not the definition. It is going to explain to you the differentiation. Absolutely. Okay. So some kind of differentiation in which internal cohesion, relative peace, solidarity, loyalty, and devotion to the in-group. Okay. I pause here. What are all these terms telling me? Internal cohesion. How can I summarize these terms? Internal cohesion, relative peace, solidarity, loyalty, and devotion. How can I summarize these terms? Absolutely. These are positive feelings towards the in-group, right? These are positive aspects towards the in-group, right? Absolutely. Or love to the people in your own group, right? Positive emotions for your own people are correlated. These positive emotions for your own people are correlated with a state of hostility toward outgroups. Okay. So if you love your own people, then there is a correlation with hating outside people. Okay. Then I paused here, which are often perceived as subhuman and or incorporation of evil. This part simply describes the outgroups. That outgroups are considered as evil people. So overall, what is the sentence telling me? The sentence has given me a very extreme definition, exaggerated definition of EC. Okay. According to this definition, there is a difference. According to this definition, love for your own people is linked with hatred towards outside people. Okay. So there is one definition of EC that has been presented. This definition is a bit exaggerated. According to this definition, love for your own people is linked towards hatred towards outside people. Now, how many of you got the first point over here? These are my notes, really. How many of you were able to get that this passage presents one definition of EC? Okay, about 80% of the class, right? How many of you were able to get that this definition is a bit exaggerated when you read the passage on your own? About half of the class. Okay. How many of you were able to summarize the definition, the extreme definition? Was 60% of the class. Okay. Almost half of the class only. Okay. So the first part over here, the first point in the note, that is a thing which is stated directly in the passage. So almost all of you, about 85% of the class, was able to read what was given and put it in your notes and understand that. Right? It was given, explicitly stated. The second part over here, that the definition is a bit exaggerated. This was to be inferred. What do I mean by that? The author said bordering on the extreme, one definition of EC. You had to understand what bordering on the extreme means in the context of the passage. So there was an inference to be drawn, okay, which is where only about 40% of the class was able to do, right? The last one was a skill called as summarization, because given this definition with so many heavy words, you had to summarize it in your own words, and only about 54% of the class could do that. Okay, so these are, so what you have learned, what I want you to put your attention on is that these two skills are very much something that you need to do on each and every part of the passage. Infer what the author is saying in your own words. Summarize, simplify what the author is saying. And these are the two things which majority of you are not able to do today. Do you guys agree with my conclusion? Inference should not just be done on inference question. Summarization should not just be done on main point questions. You need to do these two activities along with, as you're reading, you need to be doing these things. Okay? Now let's come to the answer choices. Now the question, what is the question asking us? The question is asking us, what is the main purpose of the author behind writing the paragraph? And this is something which, if you understand everything that there is to understand in the passage, right? Answering a main point question should be relatively straightforward. Now, when the author says, what is the purpose of the author, right? When the question says, what is the purpose of the author? You already know that the author has presented one definition, it's an extreme definition, and then according to the definition, what he's saying. So if he's presenting an extreme definition of something, that's what his goal is, to present an extreme definition, right? But is there something more to it? And that's when you take a look at the answer choices and you start to look at it. Okay, he's given an extreme definition about certain stuff. Now let me see how does that play with the answer choices that the author has presented, right? So let's take a look at the answer choices. To criticize a concept that encourages hostility towards people not belonging to the same group. Now here, in my summary, there was nothing about criticism. Was there anything about criticism in my summary? Yes or no? Absolutely not. So if you are pre-thinking, again, even if I don't use the term pre-thinking, if you are just thinking about the answer choices, the possible answer to the question on your own, then as you come to the answer choices, you will know, oh, right off the bat, this doesn't make sense at all. Right? So here choice A, not many of you selected, only 3 of you. So I hope you guys can understand where you faltered. There is no criticism at all. He's just presenting an exaggerated definition. That's about it. Okay. Now let's take a look at choice 2. To evaluate the concept of ethnocentrism while enlisting its features. Now, quite a few of you selected this choice, 27 of you here. Okay. Now tell me, when you evaluate, what are you doing when you're evaluating? Studying, compare, no. You list down pros and cons. When you evaluate something, you are trying to understand the positives and the negatives of that, right? So you list out pros and cons. That's what evaluation is. Okay, so to evaluate the concept of ethnocentrism, so there is no is the author doing any evaluation whatsoever? No, he's simply presenting an extreme definition. He's not talking about the pros, he's not talking about the cons. Now, people who selected choice B selected it because they simply skimmed through the passage. They didn't really understand the intent behind the passage. Now, why do I say that? If you think about it, in the passage, and let's go back to the passage here. In the passage, there are these positive emotions and then there are these negative emotions. Internal cohesion, relative peace, solidarity, loyalty, devotion. Those are all positive things. State of hostility, that's a negative thing. So people who selected choice B simply saw these positives and negatives and they said, oh yeah, there are positives and negatives, so evaluation could be the correct choice. How many of you did that? That's one of the reasons why you would have selected choice B. You saw positives and you saw negatives listed, right? So quite a few of you, right? Now, another thing, that choice said enlisting its various features. Now, if you look at it, internal cohesion, relative peace, solidarity, loyalty, devotion, these are multiple things stated, right? So how many of you looked at these multiple terms and said, oh yeah, these are various features? How many of you tried to fit choice B, tried to justify choice B based on that? Quite a few of you, right? There are 28, 27 of you who selected choice B, and 19 of you got attracted to it because of this as a reason as well. Now, where did you falter? You didn't understand. You simply looked at these words on the surface. You didn't go into the depths of why the author has used these words. What is the significance of these words in the context of the passage? Do you guys agree with my analysis here? That you simply stayed on the surface? And these are things that you can absolutely avoid. These are things that are absolutely preventable if you read the passage in the manner that we read the passage together over here. Okay, when you start to read the passage this way, the answer choices, the problem that a number of you said that the answer choices appear to be very close, the answer choices will no longer remain close. It's almost as if you read the passage, and I want you to disconnect yourself from RC right now and think about it. For a person whose eyesight is not very clear, is not very good, right? For that person, things may look blurry. Things may look, or when they look blurry, you can't really tell much of a difference, right? But as soon as you start to wear, as soon as you wear glasses, corrective lenses for your eyes, things start to now look distinct, right? That is the power that you can get if you read the passage the right way. And when that happens, the answer choices no longer appear to be close. They don't look, oh my goodness, this also seems to be correct, this also seems to be correct. That will not happen at all if you've understood the passage the right way. Does this make sense? Yes or no? All right, so choice B is wrong. Now let's look at choice C. Now this is an interesting choice. To define the concept of ethnocentrism, which leads to hierarchy among social groups. Now here the author has used the word define. Now the passage also uses the word define. It's a definition. But here what you have to do is you have to put yourself in the shoes of the author and ask, if it was my intent to define a particular topic, will I only present an extreme definition of that topic? Yes or no? And this role-playing exercise works out really well in main point type questions, because whenever you're confused for choices that seem to be, oh yeah, the author has given a definition, but let me just take a step back. If it was my intent to define a particular topic, will I only present, and only is the critical thing here, will I only present an extreme definition? And the answer is no, which means that wasn't the main purpose of the author behind writing this paragraph. So that is one big reason why choice C is wrong. The other thing is which leads to hierarchy among social groups. Again, here, just because there's that word subhuman in the passage, that's what this answer choice catches on to, because there's that word subhuman, so people who are reading simply at the surface are going to select this particular choice. Now let's come to the last one. To introduce the concept of ethnocentrism by presenting a view on it. Now this choice encapsulates the entire idea behind writing the paragraph, behind writing this passage. To introduce, yes, I can very well introduce a topic with an exaggerated definition. Right? If my intent is just to introduce, then yeah, I can use an exaggerated definition. That's very likely. By presenting a view on it, and here I know that the definition is exaggerated, and that is what this part, by presenting a view, encapsulates. So choice D is the correct answer. So now tell me, based on this analysis, what do you guys think about the answer choice analysis that we just did? Do the answer choices still appear to be close? Yes, no? In the light of the analysis that we did. Okay, so what's your learning from this question? Read and pause, understand the author's intent. Slow and steady wins the race. Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Slow and steady definitely wins the race. That should be the mantra for reading comprehension. How is a view related to with explaining about in-group, out-group? Well, a view is by presenting a view. Okay, so in answer choice D. So answer choice D is simply saying because the definition itself is exaggerated, that is how the author has written presenting a view on it. Okay, that is why the author has written that. Okay, so I have a question here, but we don't have so much time in the GMAT. I will tell you something, and again, keep timing aside. I am going to address that bit. Okay, so let me talk, and I will. So let me talk about Nishant here. Okay, let's go on. Nishant, some of you are holding reservations based on the timing aspect of it. Okay, so I want to talk about timing, but after I present to you Nishant's success story. Here's an interview with him, who went from 40 percentile ability in RC to 79 percentile in RC, with the confidence that in his last attempt, in which he scored a 740, he would have gotten all RCs correct. Okay. Now, when you watch Nishant's interview, what you're going to see is that he first faltered while applying the reading strategies. He applied them hurriedly. He would read a passage in 2 minutes and then jump to solving questions. He would have then needed to reread the passage to answer the questions, and accordingly he faltered. So despite applying the strategies, he was taking a minute to 2 minutes, 1.5 to 2 minutes per question, and he felt that his understanding of the passage was not sound enough to help him answer the questions. And that is when, after hearing from another successful e-GMATer, he started to apply the strategies slowly, something that we've been doing in this session. So what he learned the hard way was that reading strategies are a means to the end. Okay, so there is no point in rushing through the strategies if the end goal is not being met. And once he changed his mindset, and once he gave himself good 4 minutes to read the passage, he was able to answer questions in 30 seconds each. And that was the level of confidence and the power of comprehension. So why did I want to first talk about Nishant's story before telling you the answer for the timing aspect? If you spend more time up front, you will not need to spend as much time down the road in answering questions. Earlier, Nishant was spending just about 2 to 3 minutes in reading the passage, and because he wasn't spending that much time, he had to spend a lot more time on each question, wherein he was spending 1.5 to 2 minutes per question. Now, all he did was he redistributed the time. Once he started to spend these 4 to 5 minutes in reading the passage, for each question, he was now only spending 30 seconds. So all we are talking about is you redistribute the time. Your start and end time for an RC passage may well remain the same. In fact, my claim is that your start and ending time for a typical RC passage will also come down if you start to apply the reading strategies. But even if we assume that time to remain the same, all you're doing is you're redistributing time. You're taking time away from you're taking the wasted time today on the answer choices while doing all the back and forth, on the questions while doing all the back and forth, up to the reading part, so that you read everything, you read and understand everything in the passage, and only then you start to look at the questions. So it's redistribution of time, really. Does this make sense? Okay, you're doing more work up front so that you don't have to do back and forth down the road. And again, if you think about it, it's a very solid principle. That's what you do. That's what you do in a typical project as well. If you spend the time up front planning the project really well, the execution becomes more straightforward. Okay. So guys, you can take it all literally, or you can just so I know that there's one person who said if you spend 4 to 5 minutes while reading, again, you try it out for yourself. I won't be sitting here if these strategies didn't work. Okay, if I'm telling you this works, if these students are telling you that these strategies work, then I think it's for your benefit that you should give it a full shot. Okay, but ultimately decision is yours. Okay. All right. So definitely look at the interviews here. They will really help you understand and contextualize all of this stuff. Okay. So with this, let's now try another passage. Can you all please click on no over here so that I know you guys, how many of you are actively reading the passage? All right. All right, I'm going to show you the question now. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, interesting results. Okay, how was the paragraph? How was this passage? Easier than the previous one? More difficult? Clearer? Easier? Okay. Now, in this paragraph, my goal is to teach you, again, obviously, talk about the reading strategies. That goes without saying. That's how I read all the passages. So I'm going to demonstrate that to you. But also, this passage is going to tell a whole lot to you about the viewpoints of the author, viewpoints of other people, and how those come about when you think about an inference. Okay, so let's first read the paragraph and then we'll talk about the inference aspect. Okay, uh, let's read this little sentence here. The color blue is considered to have a soothing effect on the moods of people. Now, based on this sentence, what statement can you infer? Can you say that some people regard the color blue as soothing, or can you say for a fact that the color blue is soothing? And tell me, why are a number of you not selecting choice 2? Why are you not saying that as a matter of fact the color blue is soothing? Absolutely, the word considered is used. Absolutely. People is not the key. The key over here is considered. Absolutely. Why? Because what we are saying is the color blue is considered to have a soothing effect, right? Which means that only some people think that color blue has soothing effect on people. Okay. Yes, consider means that only some people choose it. Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that. Right. So only some people think that color blue has soothing effect on the moods of people, right? So that's why you cannot say that color blue is soothing. Good. So all of you understand this part. Now let's come to the passage itself. Ethnocentrism, EC, and its canonical variants are deemed to be intimately connected with xenophobia. So EC and variants are deemed to be closely connected with xenophobia. Okay, so tell me, what is the meaning of deemed? Considered, absolutely similar to considered. Okay, so ethnocentrism and its variants are considered to be closely connected with xenophobia. Now, can we say that XP and EC and XP are definitely closely connected? Can we say that? No, we cannot say that. We cannot say that EC and XP are for sure intimately connected with each other, because it's simply a deemed view. Okay. Now let's read further. A complex attitude system cum sentiment structure involving, okay guys, whoever is saying that the voice is breaking, please refresh your screen. Please log back into the session. Log out and log back into the session, because the voice is fine for everybody else. So you need to refresh your internet connection there. Okay. All right. A complex attitude system cum sentiment structure involving aversion, dislike, and antagonism vis-a-vis the strange. So a complex attitude system cum sentiment structure, or I can say is it's a structure involving, so all of these words simply are saying it's some kind of structure involving aversion or dislike, involving hatred and antagonism, involving hatred vis-a-vis the strange or the alien. So involving hatred towards the alien. Okay. All right. And everything that the stranger or the alien represents. So, what is this part talking about? This part is talking about it's absolutely, it is describing xenophobia. It's a definition of xenophobia, that it's some kind of system in which there is hatred towards the strange and everything that the stranger represents. Now, is this a fact? Is this definition a fact? Yes or no? Is this definition a fact? Absolutely it is. It's a system that involves hatred towards the stranger, the alien. Now, if you think about it, I have this is a pretty complicated definition. If you just read this definition, it's pretty complicated, you know, really heavy words. But what I've done is I've just said it's a structure that involves hatred towards the strange, towards the alien. Okay, so in 3 words, my definition is complete. Okay, and did I have to do anything out of the ordinary over here? No, I just took the information that was presented in small chunks, and I simply summarized that information in my own words. And that is very, very important. That's a very, very important skill. Simplification is a very, very important skill. Simplifying it in your own words, it's a structure that involves hatred towards the strange. Okay, now, so far so good, right? Now let's read further. Some socio-cultural anthropologists, now socio-cultural anthropologists, I can simply replace this with some experts. Some experts even considered, okay, xenophobia and XP and EC opposite sides of the same coin. Now this is where things get a bit more interesting. Why has the author used the word even over here? Read the entire part till this point, that some experts even considered XPEC opposite sides of the same coin, and tell me, why has the author used the word even? And I'm going to give you a hint here. Try to relate that back to this part over here. Absolutely. One step further, I won't call it inference, to emphasize on the intimate connection. Absolutely. What he's saying is that they are not just, it's an extended thought, so good. It's not just that they are they're closely connected. We think that they are really opposite sides of the same coin. Now, what's the feature of opposite sides of the same coin? What does opposite sides of the same coin have to do with being connected? No. What does opposite sides of the same coin? They go hand in hand. Absolutely, they coexist. They coexist. Right? They are the same thing. If there is one, there is no, it's not necessarily they are the same thing, but they coexist. If one exists, the other has to exist. If there is heads, there has to be tails. Right? So that is what the author is saying, that they are not just closely connected. There are some people who think, some experts consider these two to be coexistent. Okay, so in this case, opposites or sides of the same coin doesn't necessarily mean that they are opposites or they are extremes. That's something which is important. You can say the opposite sides of the same coin to imply that they are opposites, but here it's not that they are, the implication is not in them being opposite. The implication is that in their coexistence. And how did we figure all of that out? We figured all that out from the context of the passage. We saw this intimately connected in the beginning, and then we saw this small word which is even, and then we tried to contextualize what does opposite sides of the same coin mean. Now, how many of you do this kind of analysis when you read an RC passage? Frankly, when you start to do such analysis on RC passage, you will feel so thrilled with the whole idea of RC. Okay, and you can do this kind of analysis only when you spend the time on the RC passage. Okay, and believe me, RC passages on the GMAT, they are so well logically connected, and when you see these connections in the passage, you really feel, wow, the author has made such good connections. I mean, it's really fun reading RC passage, and this is coming from me, who up until 10 years back used to hate RC. Okay, so I've been there where you are, and I am here where I am, wherein I itch to read RC passages. I really enjoy reading them. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to explain the word even again, because there's some of you who have doubts. Essentially, what we are saying, the author initially said that there are some people who think that EC and XP are closely connected, right? Now, some sociocultural anthropologists even considered XP and EC opposite sides of the same coin. Now, what the author is saying is that there are some people who went far, who actually thought that these two are that these two coexist, right? That if one exists, the other has to exist. Okay, so that's why the author has used the word even. So essentially, these three things together tell the same thing. But a few voices, now let's talk about this, but a few voices have mentioned that this need not be the case. Now here the author is presenting a contrast, and he's saying that there are few people have said that, this need not be the case, that, opposite sides of the coexistent may be taking it too far. Okay, that's what he's saying. Okay. All right. So, I have another comment here. It's a nice strategy, but seems unrealistic to do it in such depth during the exam within the stipulated time. Again, guys, when you're learning the process, it takes time. Okay, but when you start to see these connections, right? I'm not saying that right off the bat. Today, when you start to do another passage, you will be able to do all these connections and work out everything within the stipulated time. Not at all. That's how I started off, right? This is a new skill that you're building. But you have to see, as you start to do this, you do it on 20 passages in an untimed manner, and you will automatically see from the 21st passage, the things would start to come. You will start to see all these connections intuitively. Automatically these connections would jump out at you, because as you're reading the passage, you are able to essentially, how was I able to make these connections? I read the passage and I understood, okay, what the author is saying, and then I knew that was important, and I made a note of that. Now when I looked at this word even, I didn't ignore this word, because I got into the habit of understanding everything that the author is saying. I kept this word in my mind, and automatically my mind was making those connections. Right? And that's the stage that you will definitely get to if you apply these strategies with the firm belief that these strategies work. But if you continue to feel that these strategies are going to be time consuming, then no matter how much you try, they are not going to work. You need to have that complete faith in it. Okay. Thank you for talking about. I'm experiencing it over the last 2 to 3 months with CR and SC. Thank you. I really appreciate your confidence here, and that you're seeing all these things happen. This is not just about GMAT RC. The strategy will be useful lifelong. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So again, I'm here to tell you what has worked with thousands and thousands of students. Okay. And all of these are my own very experiences, because I was right there where you are 10 years back, or I would say 15 years back. But as I went into the depths of it, I was facing the same problems, right? But as I went into the depths of it, I was like, this is a very solvable problem, and there's a logical solution to it. Ultimately, GMAT is testing you on logic, right? GMAT is not an exam which is put together to simply quiz you, to simply throw you off your game. No. These are very, very logically put passages, very, very logically put exam on the whole. Okay, so there has to be a logical solution, and this is the logical solution. All right. Let's carry on now. Okay, so let's come back to this passage and talk about the viewpoints over here. Now, inference. This is a question regarding inference, right? So, a correct inference is always from the point of view of the author. Okay, that is one thing that you need to understand, which means that if you have been asked an inference question, that inference question will be what the author believes, not what somebody else believes. Okay, that's something which you need to understand. Correct inference cannot be something on which the author has not given any opinion. So if the author has not said whether he agrees or disagrees with the information that other people say, then you cannot really have that, you cannot consider that to be a correct inference. Okay. Author believes in facts because he's a sensible person. So any fact that's presented in the passage can be considered as an inference. You can derive an inference from that fact. Okay. Now, given that being said, let's now talk about the answer choices. Choice A. Xenophobia and XP and EC are different facets of the same concept. Now, this is something which the author has said over here, that some people consider XP and EC to be opposite sides of the same coin, but this is not the view of the author himself. Therefore, this choice is not correct. And about 56% of the class selected this choice. Okay, again, it's not something that the author has presented his view on. That's why this cannot be considered as an inference. Now, the next one, XP entails dislike towards the strange. This is absolutely correct. This is a definition of XP, definition in very simplified terms, and this is a fact. And so you can actually say that the author believes in this fact. Let's look at the third one. XP and EC are not connected with each other. Again, nobody has actually said that, so we can ignore that. The canonical variants of EC are closely connected with XP. Now look at this choice. This choice was selected by quite a few of you, and this choice is actually the reword of this particular sentence, are deemed to be intimately connected with XP. But here, this was a deemed view, and the author has not said whether he agrees with this deemed view or whether he does not agree with this deemed view. So we cannot infer this statement from the passage. Okay, so the only correct inference is choice B. So is this point clear? What can be inferred and what cannot be inferred? Again, if you go into the depths of the passage while reading the passage, then all these answer choices will become a cakewalk. You won't even have to struggle to review the answer choices and to understand what the answer. Your only job will be to understand what the answer choice says, and then the other part, relating it back to the passage, you would have already done so very well because you would have read the passage very well. And that is the whole distribution of time that I'm talking about. I'm not asking you to get any additional time for RC. In fact, RC, if you follow it this way, you are going to give out time from your RC passage to the other questions. Okay, but the key point over here is redistribution of time. So really, you need to trust the process. You cannot do well in this process till the time you don't give it your 100%, till the time you don't trust it 100%. Okay. Now, in terms of the timing, this is what I've been talking about all along. It's really a redistribution of time. Okay. So when you read the passage quickly, let's say 2 to 3 minutes if you spend on the passage, every time you read an answer choice, you go back to the passage. Every time you read another question, you go back to the choice, and you end up spending 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes per passage. How many of you follow this kind of time distribution typically? Okay. And this is the time distribution, and this is what I'm talking about, redistributing the time. You read the passage upfront, 2.5 to 4 minutes upfront, right? And again, I'm giving those windows for the different lengths of the passages. that exist. And then as you're reading the question, you won't have to really do that back and forth between the answer choices, and you will ultimately be able to solve each question at most by spending a minute. Okay, so again, the key to success over here is comprehending the passage in the first go. And by when I say the first go, I don't necessarily mean that you can't go back to a particular part of the passage as you're reading it the first time. You can very well reread parts of the passage, but what I don't want is that I don't want you guys to be going back to the passage to understand the passage when you're evaluating answer choices. That is a complete no-no. If you do that, then that means you are not really able to apply the reading strategies. If you still, by in the process of learning these strategies, learning to apply these strategies, if you see yourself go back to the passage to understand it from the answer choices, then that means there was something not quite right that you did with the passage understanding. That should be a clue for you. Okay. So really, GMAT RC can be easily mastered. You need to read slowly, and you need to focus on comprehension. Now, this is the comeback story of a student who was unable to do well because of RC, and eventually was able to ace the GMAT because she mastered GMAT RC. In her first attempt, she bombed her RC. I would come across an RC in the middle of a mock. I would feel low and I would lose time and thereby end up rushing through my SC and CR questions as well. Okay, so she messed up her CR and SC because of RC. Then she changed her attitude. She decided to get immersed in the passage. As she got immersed, she found comprehending easier. She was able to take good notes and get more and more questions right. This strategy, while time-consuming in the learning phase, okay, definitely time-consuming in the learning phase, helped her improve her score to V41, that's 91 percentile on GMAT. In fact, this is exactly what Arjun did. He took GMAT 3 times and he just could not improve his verbal score. He did everything that he could. RC was his pain point, and in his final attempt, he applied the reading strategies. He didn't do anything differently from what we've done in this webinar so far. He applied the reading strategies and focused on gaining that complete comprehension. Okay, he stayed calm. He focused on learning. And this is not me as an instructor telling you. This is the student who has toiled through the process. Okay, so definitely listen to his interview. And what was the result? He scored a V41 in his final attempt. He went from 40 percentile in verbal to 91 percentile in verbal. Okay, so that's the magic that's possible, but there are no tricks. What you need to do is believe in the process, work diligently, toil through it. So how can you do that? The first thing is you need to improve your comprehension. Second thing is you need to learn how to address those question types. And the third thing is you need to practice in the right manner. Learning doesn't happen in a linear fashion. Once you learn the concepts and the methods, you need to iterate in order to cement those methods in your mind. So that iteration is very important. And how do you do that iteration? Where do you spend that time? For that, you need to first evaluate what are you not doing right, and then figure out, okay, these are my problem areas and this is how I'm going to fix it. Okay, so for improving comprehension, we have dedicated skill building exercises. The first course that I want you to do is Master Comprehension course. As I said earlier, this is the basic foundation course for all of GMAT Verbal. Okay, even if you are at 60 percentile or higher in GMAT Verbal, I still want you to go through Master Comprehension course because it sets that baseline for how is it that you should be reading a single sentence. Okay. So do that. Once you do that, then you go through the foundation module of reading comprehension course, in which we now contextualize all these learnings into your reading strategies. The reading strategies that I taught you today, the 3 of them, those have been detailed out. Those have been explained to you in detail in these foundation concepts. And then you have these practice files on which you try out these strategies, right? The way we did today, we gave you a complete short passage. In the similar manner, these practice files actually give you a passage, but it doesn't give you the entire passage up front. We tell you where to pause, and then we ask you questions that you should have the understanding that you should have had from those questions, from the part of the passage. So again, these are very, very interesting skill building practice files that you should go through. Okay. Now, once you do that, then you go through the specialized concept. For each question type, we have different modules. In each module, we basically first teach you that particular question type, and then we then give you practice files on answering the questions, right? So main point module contains 2 concept files in which we talk about main point question, and then 2 practice files in which we give you questions so that you can apply those learnings. Likewise, we have 3 concept files for inference questions, and then 2 practice files for inference, so on and so forth for detail and structure. So essentially what we are doing is we are having you first build your foundation skills here. How is it that you read? And then once you know how to read properly, and once you are aware of that, then you start to learn how do you answer questions based on what you've read. Okay. And then, so this is going to end your learning part, right? Then comes the dedicated practice, not blind practice, not practicing thousands and thousands of questions, but really very dedicated practice, very targeted practice. And that's where you have the 4 application files in the course, and then you have ability quizzes and ability to take custom quizzes in Scholar Rhenium. Okay. Overall, you have up to more than 45 passages throughout. Right, so essentially, with that uniform coverage across all the genres of the passages, and with the great analytics that come about. For example, as you go through this in Scholar Rhenium, you will see, am I not able to answer main point questions in humanities passage, or am I not able to answer main point questions in, let's say, science related passages, right? Or am I having issues primarily with a certain business passages? Those are the kinds of inferences that you will be able to draw as you do this dedicated practice utilizing Scholar Rhenium, and then you have this entire course to which you can go back and see, okay, which type of files do I need to review again. Okay. So here's another example of a student who made reading strategies a habit. Anastasia is another person who took GMAT 3 times. She even took a private tutor the second time in Moscow. She took Master Comprehension course to heart. Successful students do that. They build their foundation skills. So she learned how to read to understand the meaning. And that is the power of reading the passage really well. She also made sure, as Arjun did, to read the passage only once. And her time to answer questions came down so very much. Okay. So really, be diligent, be smart. Don't focus on quantity. Don't do the misstep of timing yourself when you are in the learning phase. Okay, and don't rely on tricks. Use the strategies that work. Use the strategies that seem logical to you. Okay, and I'm going to end this session by saying that on the GMAT, speeding kills. All right, so with that, we've come to the end of this session, and I am going to remove these questions from here. So while I share the PDF with you, I would want you guys to put in your questions over here for the third part of this session. Can you suggest some reading materials which will improve my overall comprehension? I tried Economist, although the passages were very nice, it's too costly. I would say go through the course. It is important for you to go through the course so that you understand how is it that you should be reading. That should be your first stop. Frankly, you have enough coverage in the course itself that you don't necessarily need any other material. But I would really say that reading is good, so definitely invest in Economist. That is a good idea. I would definitely say that. Okay. What's the duration of the course? Well, duration of the course is really, it really depends on you, okay? To prepare for RC, you can take anywhere from, I would say, 5 to 20 hours, I would say, right? So again, it depends on what your starting point is. If your starting point is, let's say, 20 percentile, then definitely you're going to take a lot longer to get to your target score, right? So, yeah. So again, when you create, so as Rajat was explaining, in the beginning, when you create your personalized study plan, you get your starting and your ending scores, and you also, depending upon how much time you will be able to spend on a per day basis. That's how you determine how long you would take to prepare. And again, those are average numbers. All right. Should we summarize line by line or paragraph by paragraph? It really depends on you, on the passage, on how much, on at what point do you start to see overload of information. Okay, I always say that as you're reading the passage, you should start to get comfortable with the passage, and when you feel that okay, any new information is going to create that load on your mind, at that point pause and summarize everything in your own words. Okay. All right. My first question is, any additional tips for immersion when the topic is something dry and theoretical, and how to maintain immersion when the paragraph is bombarding you with complex vocabulary? Again, breaking it down into smaller parts, sentence structure, breakdowns. Whenever a problem is complex, you break down the problem, and that's what you're doing with complex structures. Okay. Additional tips for immersion. Again, you have to just tell yourself that you're interested in the passage. The author has spent so much effort in creating the paragraph. The least that you can do is give it a thorough read. Give it a read that means something. Okay, that's how I would call it. On an average, how much time should it take me to improve my RC skill, taking into account that the majority of us aim to present GMAT within the next month? Well, Christian, it's a loaded question, and without knowing what your starting points are, I really can't tell you that. And as I said, that's why there is no one cookie cutter plan. And that's what everyone learns in a different manner. Everyone has a different starting point. Everyone has a different learning style. So that's why we have spent the effort in creating personalized study plan, right? So look at that, create your own plan, and then figure out that, okay, and then you can figure out that, okay, this is how much time I need to spend on learning it, right? As I said earlier, if let's say you're already at 60 percentile, then maybe a couple of days of targeted practice utilizing Rhenium will help you. Whereas if let's say you are at 40 percentile, then you would definitely need to go through the course, and going through the course will take at least, I would say, at least 10 hours, right? Because you'll have to absorb a whole lot of information. Okay, so again, it really depends on your learning style, your starting scores, right? Okay. Meghashri, I would want you to write to us and explain to us your situation. You're indicating that you couldn't improve in your last attempt. So write to us in detail so that we can look at your course attempt, we can look at your ESR, and we can tell you where you faltered so that you don't make the same mistakes again. So definitely write to us in detail, support@e-GMAT.com, and we'll get back to you. Okay. Can I go from 28 to 33 in 2 weeks' time if I'm studying all day? Absolutely, you can, right? And why just 33? If you're studying all day and you have 2 weeks, you can actually increase that score even more. You can get to 35, 36. Again, Pragya, create your own study plan in PSP. Make sure that you have a reliable estimate of your starting score. Okay, so definitely you should look at that. Okay. Eri, you can definitely ask a question. Oh, please give the PDF. Sorry about that. I got so immersed in the questions that I forgot to give you the PDF. Go ahead. Okay, do I really need to read the likes of economists to improve my RC score, or will it be sufficient to master these reading strategies and do enough practice with actual GMAT samples? You are not required to read economist, to answer your question. To improve your RC, the course material itself is self-sufficient. Yes, course material plus the official guide plus the GMAT prep mocks, that is self-sufficient. So you don't need anything else. Any number of passages I need to practice every day to inculcate these strategies? Good question, Jasmine. What I would say is, when you are learning the process, just do reading comprehension, just follow along with the course, okay? And we'll give you guidance as to how to go about doing that. So again, if you're starting to prepare for RC, first do master comprehension, and that's included in your GMAT online course. So do that, and then come to the RC module, go through the module in the sequence that it has been given, that has been presented in the course. And after that, we're going to guide you about how is it that you should be utilizing Rhenium to actually cement your method. So we have full support that we provide to you about how is it that you should be doing each and every step in the course. How is it that you should be learning? How is it that you should be cementing your methods? And how is it that you should do test readiness? So we will give you all the help there. Okay, so I have a question. Even after applying all the strategies taught, one isn't able to comprehend the passage completely, maybe due to any reason, heavy usage of familiar words, topics, and content. What shall you suggest on dealing with such a problem? Fairly simple. If you maybe due to any reason, that is where the crux of your answer is. Figure out what is the reason for you not able to comprehend the passage and work on that reason. If it is heavy usage of unfamiliar words, try to figure out why are these words unfamiliar. How is it that you can replace those unfamiliar words with a contextual word, the way we did today for that question. What was that word there? The first one. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the passage here. Schismatic, right? Schismatic. So again, you have to, again, due to any reason, while you're learning, in the learning phase, you need to go into the depths of what is the reason that you're not able to read the passage properly. You're not able to comprehend the passage properly, and you need to fix that reason so that the same scenario doesn't happen in the test environment. That is precisely what you need to prepare for. Okay. Okay, it's my first exam which is scheduled in 2 weeks from now. I'm just reading few materials since last 1 month. I'm good at few topics, though I have not practiced any of the exams yet. Any suggestions or plan? Absolutely, Deb. I would recommend that you take Sigma X mock test to figure out what your abilities are. Right? You know that you're good at a few topics, but you're not good at others. So you need to figure out where you're at right now and then come up with your plan of preparation. Maybe you're already there, right? But then maybe there are certain sections in which you need help. So again, you need to, till the time you don't measure, you don't know what it is that you need to improve. So you need to measure that first, and you can, and you can absolutely, the only mock that's going to give you the right kind of metrics is the Sigma X mock, because that's the only mock that gives you your subsectional abilities in each of the 5 subsections. Okay, no other mocks, not even official GMAT mocks give that. Okay, I got a score of 620, and that's 5 years back, V28, Q48. Now I restarted prep 20 days back, and initially without any prep, I wrote a sample test of Veritas prep and got 540. How can I reach 720? I would say, first of all, I don't trust any other mock test, but given that your scores are, I mean, quant seems to be really low, but 5 years back your quant was high. What I would say is start with verbal prep. I wouldn't recommend that you take a mock test just yet, Manoj. I would say start with verbal prep, start with master comprehension, do SC, do CR, do RC, because you're at B21, so you're not naturally good at, you're not really at a 60 percentile level in any of the 3 sections. I can assume that. So just start preparing for verbal, and then quant. I think you may just be rusty with concepts, because at some point in time you did get a Q48, even though it was 5 years back. So quant, again, go through the course, go through the concepts first. So start off with number properties, do word problems, you can skip advanced topics for now, then do algebra, and then do geometry. So do the course in the right manner, because where you're at, you need to go through the entire course. But again, go through the course in the right manner. And as you purchase the course, we will help you so that you can do the course in the right manner. We guide you accordingly. Okay. Okay. I'm a course taker, and RC is the hard part. Is it possible to have RC as the weak part to get 600? Absolutely. If your target score is 600, then again, create your personalized study plan. You don't really need to master RC, right? But you will definitely need to do well in CR and SC. So create your personalized study plan, and that's precisely why a study plan has to be personalized, right? So do that, Eri, and then you should be able to see that for RC you don't really need to hit that high 80 or 90 percentile. You can get to a 600 by even scoring a, let's say, 50 or a 60 percentile, right? So create that. Okay, I get 4 or 5 or 4 or 6 in RC. Am I good? Well, that's a very that's a question which is flawed in itself. What does am I good mean? If you're getting 4 out of 5 questions correct, 4 out of 6 questions correct, what difficulty level are we talking about? So again, that's a very that's not a complete question in itself, right? What we typically say is that once you should be able to, for easy questions, your accuracy should be more than 80%. For medium questions, your accuracy should be more than 70%. For hard questions, your accuracy should be more than 55%. Okay, so keep that as a ballpark figure to as a yardstick to measure how well you're doing. Again, this is to, and the higher is the more your accuracy improves in medium and hard questions, the more your percentile will improve. Okay. Will 1 month of prep be sufficient if I'm currently scoring 650 and aim to score 720? Absolutely, it will be. Janvi, for you, as for everyone, because you're already at 650, there are certain strong sections, right? So for those strong sections, you don't need to go through the course. All you need to do is you need to utilize Rhenium to figure out what your weak areas are and just revise those weak areas from the course material, right? And that's the beauty of having that personalized study plan, because now you know what your starting score is and you know what you're good at, and you need to now take that section. Let's say you are at a 70 percentile in SC, you now take that 70 percentile and you know that you can get to that 90 percentile in SC, so you know that you need to focus on cementing the methods in SC, and that's something that you do by doing proper strategic review of the questions that you answer in Rhenium, right? And we guide you through that process. We tell you exactly how to review each and every question so that you can learn the maximum from it, and so that you don't make the same mistakes going forward, right? So definitely you can going from 650 to 720 in a month, if you are spending about 10 hours a week, that is definitely doable. Okay. But again, you need to do it in a proper manner. You need to know what you're focusing on. So planning is very important. So create a PSP. And if you have any doubts, ask us. We'll help you with it. A score of 590 on Manhattan Prep Q42 V28 with 2 to 3 weeks be sufficient to prepare? Not at all, because you need to work on both quant and verbal. So 2 to 3 weeks of part-time preparation will not be good, will not be sufficient. So again, be realistic about it. And again, guys, PSP gives you a very personalized study planner, gives you a very realistic idea of how much effort it takes. Okay, so 2 to 3 weeks, how many hours are you talking about during those 2 to 3 weeks? So from the questions that I'm getting, it basically tells me that you are you're basically thinking about your planning perspective, right? So definitely I would suggest after the session, the next stop for you should be for creating your personalized study plan. Okay. Okay. I'm pretty sure my base level is 580, Q40, V30. Is it realistic to aim 700 plus in 2 months? Absolutely. Very much realistic. Again, 2 months is a good amount of time, because again, you need to work on both quant and verbal. Again, guys, create PSP. All of these are very realistic targets, except for one which I mentioned, that Q42, V28, 2 to 3 weeks will not be sufficient to get to a 720, right? But yeah, I mean, 2 months, Q40, V30, definitely. Which mock is best to understand percent split by all 5 sections, Sigma X mocks? So go through that. One mock is available to all of you free of charge. By the way, I appreciate the strategy you walked us through. Thank you, Surbi. And Surbi, you said that you're talking about difficult questions, 4 out of 6 and 4 out of 6 or 4 out of 5 questions, yes. If that's difficult questions, then yes, your accuracy is more than 55% in those. So you should be good to get 80 percentile, at least 80 percentile in RC. So, but again, if you want to take that up to the next level, so you are there based on the stat that you just told me. All right, so with that, we've come to the end of this session. It was really wonderful conducting this webinar for you. You've been a wonderful audience. And again, if you have any doubts, guys and girls, let me just send us an email, and we will be more than happy to help you out. Okay. Okay, you're 35 from medical background. Do you have a chance to get into Harvard, Wharton, Stanford? Do you have a fair chance? Yes, it depends on how good your background is. Just saying that you're from medical background, that doesn't tell me much. There's a lot of, see, schools want to get varied. You're not from the heavy represented category, that's for sure, right? So you have a good differentiator there itself, but then that is not enough. You have to explain what have your accomplishments been in the medical background. What have you learned? Where have you failed? What have you accomplished? So those things, as long as you can tell a good story, and if you have a good growing career progression till this point, definitely you do have a fair chance. Okay. Okay, so I have another question. I'm taking 15 to 20 minutes for one RC with around 67% accuracy. I feel I'm taking more time. What should I do to reduce my time? So Swaroop, good question. Right now you're in the learning phase. Figure out what kind of, first of all, review the solution and figure out, okay, what part of the solution were you not able to get at when you solved the question on your own, okay? Then ask yourself, why did that happen? Why were you not able to understand that? So again, a lot of learning will depend on how much you probe into how much critical you are of yourself. Okay, when you solve the question, you need to do, after you solve the question, you need to do that thorough strategic review of the passage, right? And we give you detailed solutions for that. Not only for our own questions, we also give you detailed solutions for OG questions, right? So do that, figure out what exactly are you not doing right? What parts of the solution were you able to do on your own? What parts of the solution were you not able to do on your own? And why was that the case? Why were you not able to understand the linkage that you should have understood? Why were you not able to simplify the information? Why did you answer that inference question incorrectly? So again, there should be a lot of whys that you need to answer when you're reviewing the solutions, and the answers to those whys will basically help you improve in the next passage that you do. Okay. Okay, CGPA of 60% paired with GMAT 700%, is it 700 plus, is it enough to aim for top schools like NCR? Want to understand the weightage given to CGPA. CGPA 60% seems to be low, I would say. So if your academics are not that high, then definitely you should aim to get a much higher GMAT score. 700, just 700 plus will not be enough. I would say try to get to a 740 plus or a 750 plus, right? Again, what you are trying to convince the admissions committee is that you have the right kind of academic rigor. And if for any reason your CGPA was not that high, you can't go and change that fact, right? That's a fact. You can justify why it wasn't high, but then you can set their concern, so you can address their concern by scoring high in your GMAT, right? So again, that is what you need to think about. Okay. All the admissions committee wants to make sure is that, can you handle the academic rigor? Can you be successful? Okay. I had attended the SC webinar last week but had to disconnect a bit earlier due to work. Can I still get the PDF for that webinar? Pooja, can you send us an email? We can definitely share the PDF with you. So send us an email, and we will email you back. Okay. when is the next webinar having me as the host? I would say in another 2 weeks. Can you help me get into Harvard? I plan to make the R2 deadline. I'm at 580 today. I need help to improve my score significantly and submit a strong application. Okay, quality, I think work experience. Okay, well, Ayula, I would say write to us so that we can help you out with creating your study plan. Create your personalized study plan. That is the first stop for you. Okay, so create your study plan, send us an email, and we will help you review that study plan and we'll guide you accordingly. Okay, so definitely do that. We can definitely help you out there. Morally, in MBA first mock, I got 630, V28, and Q49. My target score is 740. How many days perfect preparation is needed if I spend 10 hours per day to achieve that score, and how many mocks would be needed? So Murli, you need to spend time on verbal. That's for sure. Yeah. So how many more days? I would say create your personalized study plan. That is what I would recommend. So do that, and you should be able to figure out how long it takes for you to prepare, because you are at V28. So yeah, so create your personalized study plan. I can give you a number here, but again, if you think 10 hours per day, wow, okay, sorry, that's a lot of time. So I would say create your plan. I will need to take a look at it, and I will actually need to guide you appropriately how to spend those 10 hours judiciously, because usually people we recommend, let's say, 2 hours of a sitting, single sitting, so that you do you do a set of work during those 2 hours, right? Now you're spending 10 hours, so you can technically get at least 4 good sittings during that day. So create your plan, send it to us, we'll review it, and we'll guide you accordingly. Okay, that's what I would say, because you can get through your preparation within 2 weeks, I would think, if you do it the right way. But again, we have to make sure that you prepare the right stuff. For example, not all concept files are considered. Basically, you need to do the right grouping together, right? So that's where I'll have to guide you appropriately. So create your PSP, send me an email, and reference our discussion, so that my team knows that you and I had this discussion over here, and then they'll respond to you accordingly. Okay? All right. So okay. All right then. So there is only one PDF. 2.session PDF doesn't mean it's a second PDF. It's just how we number our information. Sure. So Ayula, send us an email, and we'll help you out with the PDF. We'll send you the PDF in the email as well. How many mocks are needed, Murli? Again, we typically recommend about 3 to 4 mocks, and you get 5 mocks with the GMAT subscription. Plus, if you need more, then it's official mocks as well. So again, you don't need any more than 3 to 4 mocks, I would think. So again, Murli, write to me. Yours is a very unique case wherein you are, I won't say very unique case, but yes, yours is one of those cases where you're working full-time on your preparation. So send me an email so that we can guide you appropriately. Okay? All right. So guys, with this, I'm going to end. I do see some more questions here. Again, I would say write to us so that we can take this discussion offline and we can give you more precise feedback. But for all of you, whoever is asking me questions about how many hours would it take, I would say for us to have that productive discussion, create your personalized study plan on your own, because you're going to learn a whole lot from just doing that exercise, right? Do that on your own and then write to us for any further questions that you may have. Okay? All right. So Archana, you want to go from 700 to 750 in the next 1 month, and you're already at V40 and Q47. So we can definitely help you building your study plan. For you, the focus will be on quant and then on verbal. So we first need to build your quant from 47 to at least 49, and then we want to see if we can take your V40 to V44. So definitely write to us, but first I would say create your own personalized study plan, and that's the beauty of the personalized study plan. Regardless of whether you are at 580 or at 630 or at 700, you will be able to figure out what your true person, what your plan should be based on your personal starting points and ending points. Okay, so create that so that we can take that discussion to the next level then. Okay, so I look forward to hearing from everyone who's been asking from all of you. Send me an email at pile@e-gmat.com or at support@e-gmat.com, and we will help you with your study plans. Okay. All right then, with this I'm going to end this meeting, and good luck everyone, and we are there to help you get to your target GMAT score. Just let us know how we can help you, and we are going to do everything